The progressive wing of the Democratic Party scored a victory last night in the state of Florida. And what does this mean for the 2026 United States Senate election in Florida? And also, what does it mean for the 2026 Florida governor's race? We're going to talk about that in today's video. So, from the article, you can see that there was a key race last night in Florida that kind of took everybody by surprise. We seen Nixon, actually, State Representative Angie Nixon, finish ahead of Alex Vindman, her Democratic opponent for the primary race in Florida. And this was really shocking because Alex Vindman had actually raised 16 times as much campaign money as Angie Nixon. In fact, Angie Nixon couldn't even run a campaign ad across the state of Florida, but somehow as the Democratic nominee for the 2026 U.S. Senate race in the state of Florida, she will face Ashley Moody in this race, and this is going to be a really interesting race overall. So last night, we'll look at the primary results to start. Last night, Angie Nixon finished ahead of Alex Vindman, winning about 56% of the vote, and this is pretty much all of the vote reported now. Ashley Moody, of course, easily winning her primary race to defeat, or to continue to try and serve in the United States Senate after this Florida special election. So for a little bit of context for those of you that may not know or may need a little backstory, this race is a special election to fill the seat of Marco Rubio. So Ashley Moody was appointed to this race by Governor Ron DeSantis, and ultimately she's now facing an election. This November, voters will decide if they want her, Ashley Moody, or if they want Angie Nixon to continue to represent them in the United States Senate until the next regular election cycle, Senate race, which would be would be next election cycle back in 2028. So also, for a little historical context, the last time that this race was up, Marco Rubio won this race by 16.4% against Val Demings, so winning about 57.5% of the vote back in 2022. And now that we're in 2026, is this race going to be any closer? Well, Alex Vindman looked to make it somewhat closer, but still fully expected to go to the Republican Party. But now that it's Angie Nixon, the stakes for this race couldn't be any more important, because the fact is that Angie Nixon's not going to perform as well as someone like Alex Vindman. It's just a simple fact. I mean, the campaign money raised, and then this progressive wing of the Democratic Party, there's a lot of Democrats in the state of Florida who aren't exactly going to go along with this, and one of those being the Democratic nominee for Florida Governor David Jolly, a former Republican congressman from the state of Florida, running against Byron Donalds, and has kind of already made it clear that he doesn't support this Democratic Socialist wing of the party. So there's this kind of divided ticket amongst Florida voters to decide, okay, well, I can vote for David Jolly, but I can't vote for Angie Nixon. We expect to see some sort of vote like that out in the state of Florida, where some people are supporting David Jolly to be the next governor of the state of Florida, but some people also at the same time may be supporting Ashley Moody, maybe writing somebody in, but aren't supporting Angie Nixon in this race. So that's going to be a significant part of this as well, to see how much of a difference there really is in the governor's race versus the Senate race, because at this point, I would fully expect the Senate race to actually be a larger scale victory for Republicans than I would this governor's race. I think Byron Donalds is in a worse position than Ashley Moody is. Now, that's not to say Byron Donalds is going to go lose this governor's race. I don't expect that to happen. But certainly, Democrats are in a spot where, on the Senate level at least, they are going to be struggling to try and even make this even somewhat competitive, in my personal view. So, with that said, I also, of course, wanted to point out these fundraising numbers that are absolutely crazy to look at. Alex Vindman raising $16 million. Angie Nixon, not even $1 million, $974,000 raised. And she nearly spent all of that. Cash on hand's $264,000 now. Nearly 265 now. And Alex Vindman still had $7 million on hand. But here's the deal. Angie Nixon is going to be the Democrats' nominee for this U.S. Senate seat. What does it mean? Well, if we take a look at the Vote Hub average, they haven't quite updated this to have Angie Nixon as the Democratic nominee. Still says eventual nominee, but we'll take into consideration this. Before this primary was conducted, Ashley Moody was expected to win by about 7% overall, and had about an 84.7% chance of victory. I think that now increases, and I think the margin is probably somewhere above 10% across the state of Florida. And I say that because, again, I just am not convinced that someone who has not been able to raise money across the state of Florida, someone who is arguably going to be in this kind of fight between the Democratic nominee for governor, I'm not convinced that Democrats are going to be able to perform any better across the state of Florida for this Senate race, given that Angie Nixon is now the Democratic nominee. Now, if you told me that Alex Vindman won last night, I might tell you that this race was going to be, a little bit closer than we seen back in 2022. But today, I'm not totally convinced. While Ashley Moody may not win by the margin that Marco Rubio did in 2022, I don't expect that this race is going to be anything close. I don't expect that this race is going to be competitive for Democrats. I think Democrats are much more interested in focusing on states like Ohio, Maine, North Carolina, Alaska, Michigan even, of course, and Texas. These are states that I think Democrats are really focusing on, and I don't think that after last night's primary results that Florida's going to change. So, with all of that said, I want to know what you guys are thinking in the comments below. Did this race, first of all, catch you off guard? Because it totally did for me. I was fully expecting to watch the results last night and see Alex Vindman win that Senate primary across the state of Florida. Someone who had, I thought, raised the money and proven that he was going to win. Ultimately, not happening, though. I mean, we've seen Angie Nixon honestly have a substantial victory against Alex Vindman, winning by over 10% across the state. And that's significant alone. But also something else just real quick to point out before I end the video is Angie Nixon and Alex Vindman together didn't even match the votes that Ashley Moody did in this primary. So that also should probably at least somewhat spell alarms for Democrats across the state of Florida. I mean, we've known Florida's trajectory is going towards the right. That's not necessarily a surprise. But we still expect the Democrats to perform well across the state. Maybe not, matching those numbers, but in a primary race, I mean, Democrats traditionally perform a little bit better in primary races. Democrats are traditionally more motivated to get out and vote. I mean, we've seen in Texas where Democrats actually had more voters in their primary than Republicans did. But across the state of Florida, not the case. Republicans going to get that advantage, and not really much of a surprise, but something to point out nonetheless. So with all of that said, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Do you believe that Angie Nixon is positioned to make this race competitive even, or do you think that Alex Vindman would have made this race more competitive? Of course, there are concerns being placed now that Alex Vindman didn't do enough to win this primary over, and maybe perhaps that's the case. I'm not on the ground in Florida, so I can't say for certain, but certainly an interesting development in this Senate race across the state of Florida. So with all of that said, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Do you guys believe that Angie Nixon is on track to make this race competitive, or do you believe that she is another Val Demings, another traditional Democrat across the state of Florida who isn't going to be able to win statewide again in 2026? Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If you haven't already, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. I have my 2026 playlist on the right side of your screen now. You're welcome to check out any of those videos. I would love if you guys wanted to watch some of those. I've made videos about all sorts of races here lately, so check those out if you're interested. Again, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Make sure those post notifications are on, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you guys again so much for watching.